Good morning. Bonjour tout le monde, and thank you for joining us. I'm Bridget Anderson, President and CEO of the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade. On behalf of the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade, thank you for joining us to welcome the Right Honourable Mark Carney, Canada's 24th Prime Minister, to our stage for a timely conversation about strengthening Canada's economy. Since being elected just over 1 year ago, the Prime Minister has been direct about where we stand and what this moment requires of us. As the world becomes more dangerous and divided, we recognize the role that the business community must play. From the historic grease trails and river networks, to the gold rush, to the first commercial shipment of lumber bound for Australia more than 160 years ago, trade has always defined the West. It was, and still is, the entrepreneurial spirit that moved people here to build a better life. Prime Minister, this room is here today to tell you we are ready. We are ready to mobilize and put this agenda into action, to build here at home, diversify trade, unlock responsible resource development, deliver LNG to the world, and invest for a stronger, more productive, and more prosperous Canada. Our members are working hard to move from concepts to permits to shovels in the ground. We are very much looking forward to hearing from the Prime Minister, and after his remarks, we'll sit down for a conversation. We asked you all to submit your questions in advance, and I have incorporated them into our conversation today. On behalf of the Board of Trade, I would like to thank our generous partners for making today's event possible. Thank you to our presenting sponsors, YVR and TELUS, our breakfast sponsor, BCIT, our supporting sponsors, RBC, MasterCard, Destination Vancouver, Vancouver Fraser Port Authority, BC Hydro, Wood Fibre LNG, Invest Vancouver, a service of Metro Vancouver. Our community sponsors, BC Maritime Employers Association and Fortinet. Our event partner, One Group Agency. And lastly, a special thanks to our long-standing pillar partners. We do have some special guests in the room that I would like to acknowledge. Welcome to our federal ministers, the Honourable Dominic LeBlanc, Gregor Robertson, and Jill McKnight. We also have a number of MPs in the room. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Ken Sim, Mayor for the City of Vancouver, and his colleagues on Council. I would now like to invite to the stage Chief Wayne Sparrow, Chief Justin Sky George, and Council Chairperson Wilson Williams for a special welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Chief Wayne Sparrow, traditional names of Yakaluk. Gives me a privilege and honor to welcome each and every one of you to the shared territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people, standing here with our elected spokespersons from each community. Gives me an honor, once again, to be here. As First Nations people, and listening to Bridget, we want to also acknowledge Bridget and your leadership in giving us this opportunity. I think that we have to pay honor to our past leaders that aren't with us here today, the struggles that they had to get us to where we are today and to get us acknowledged on our own lands to be able to move forward. And Prime Minister, we're here to work, and we want to work together. We have some great opportunities in all three of our communities. We did it just with our attainable housing, affordable housing, and to be able to move those things forward. But we want to be part and walk side by side so that we can make a success. So I want to, once again, on behalf of all three of our communities, welcome each and every one of you here and appreciate and acknowledge our leadership that's here today too. A lot of our council members from our three communities are here with us today. A lot of our partners and business partners are here. And I know from our past leaders that they wanted us to be in this room. They wanted us to be part of this country and this province. And we're going to do it by working together. So, Haitchka, thank you.
Thank you, Chief and Council Chairperson, for starting us off this morning in a wonderful way. I now have the pleasure of inviting to the stage the President and CEO of Vancouver International Airport, voted the best airport in North America for a record 15 years, Tamara Vrooman.
Thanks so much, Bridget. It's certainly a warm and full room here today. Hottest ticket in town next to resale of FIFA, don't you think? And also, Haitchka to Chief Sparrow and our colleagues at Tsleil-Waututh and Squamish. Thank you so much for welcoming us in such a good way. Amitsap Kuquilam, welcome, everyone. And to the Prime Minister, bonjour, Monsieur le Premier Ministre. Bienvenue à Vancouver. It's my pleasure to introduce to all of you today, as someone said, this guy that's come and visited us from Ottawa, the Prime Minister of Canada. As you know, my name is Tamara Vrooman. I am the President and CEO of YVR, and YVR has a tradition here at Board of Trade events of having some spectacular videos and presentations. But now is not the time for those. Now is the time for what I've heard they've said often these days in Ottawa. When things need to move quickly, we need to move at the speed of Carney. And so that's what we'll be doing in my remarks today. This room brings together leaders from business, government, and First Nations, leaders who shape the economic future of Canada and British Columbia. Here in Vancouver and BC, we have what the world needs: energy, critical minerals, and some of the best educated talent on the planet. And best of all, we have the trade networks to move it where it was most needed in the world. I like to think of it this way. Vancouver is to trade and logistics what Toronto is to money and banking. Our city and region are shaped by trade, innovation, and connection to global markets. Prime Minister, we've heard your call to be bold so we can seize this once-in-a-generation moment. At this critical time, we're fortunate to have you, Prime Minister, an experienced global leader who brings an acute understanding of the forces shaping Canada's economy, our institutions, and our place in the world. Colleagues, in under 2 minutes, on-time performance is super important in my day job. Please join me in welcoming the Right Honourable Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Tamara. You were pretty good at banking, as I remember, as well. Savings, credit unions. Let me thank you, Tamara, Bridget, for this welcome, for bringing together an incredible room. Let me first, though, thank Chief Wayne Sparrow, Chief Justin Sky George, Councillor Wilson Williams, for beginning this meeting in a good way. And also, when I was listening to what you said, Chief Wayne Sparrow, and you recalled our ancestors and the lessons. And I want to So to draw a bit of a lesson before I go into my 45 minutes of prepared remark, in my business, 2 minutes, I'm just getting started. I hope you guys don't have anything else to do this morning. You know, the Board of Trade, Greater Vancouver Board of Trade, as you know, formed really within months of the CPR arriving here. And you think of the spirit of the times and all the great companies that have formed, some that are still exist, but others that have formed and gone by the wayside. Some of the great companies that are sponsors here today. And you think of the various sectors from mining to machine learning, if you will. And I recall back that I have a connection to the former, which is my maternal grandfather worked in the copper mine at Britannia Beach. So back in would have been the 30s and 40s and 50s. And so that's where my mother grew up, when it was not a place you went through, all due respect to Britannia Beach, on the way to Whistler or Squamish, but a destination you could only reach by boat. This is amazing. It was an amazing mine, as many of you know. You should go to the Mine Museum if you don't know all this. There's more, actually, in the Mine Museum than I'm about to say. But at one point, producing 17% of the world's copper, right? So a level of ambition and a history there. But there's a lot of lessons to learn about how that mine operated. The legacy it left, both in terms of tailings and destruction. The way the workers were treated. The way First Nations were not included. We need the similar level of ambition and delivery, but building in the right way, in solidarity with workers, in full partnership with First Nations, and sustainably. And that's what the government is focused on doing. So speed, but doing speed the right way, and that really requires partnership. Now, let me turn to some aspects of that. You know, I do know, as I said a moment ago, that I was kidding. You have a lot to do. This room has a lot to do, and you don't have a lot of time. And Bridget and I are going to have a conversation. So, in ahead of that, I want to spend a few minutes highlighting some aspects of our government's agenda. We were elected just over a year ago to build a stronger, more independent, and more resilient Canadian economy. And I'm going to concentrate on one aspect of that mission, largely, which is around energy, because the world is facing a three-dimensional energy crisis. The most immediate aspect of that crisis is affordability. And in some countries, increasingly in the next few weeks, it's going to be about availability. That's the first challenge. The second challenge is a structural challenge of energy security. And the last is related to the existential challenge of climate change and the transition to net zero that's necessary to combat it. Now, Canadians are feeling the impacts of this at their kitchen table, at the pumps, and on the factory floors. And the good news for us in this room and across the country is that, unlike many countries, Canada can be part of the solution. And that creates an enormous strategic opportunity. We can be part of the solution for the world and for ourselves. And I want to draw out a bit of that and just underscore how connected a series of things that we're doing are, and how we can leverage them to the maximum advantage of British Columbia and Canada. Now, Canada is on a path to become a low risk being one of the most important elements here, low cost and low carbon supplier that the world needs. It was just 2 weeks ago, the head of the International Energy Agency, Fatih Birol, said that Canada has a golden opportunity, I quote, with many cards to play. And much of that hand, that card-playing hand, is held here in British Columbia. You know from some of your sponsors, I know Woodfibre is one of your sponsors, lowest carbon conventional energy, including, thank you, Susanna, LNG Canada's Phase 2, which you generated in your leadership at Shell. We can double our output in clean LNG including with siliceums, cedar, wood fiber, as I said, and many more. Canada est au cœur de la transition énergétique dans le domaine des minéraux critiques, dans le secteur nucléaire, de l'uranium, aux réacteurs conduits et des petits réacteurs modulaires, dans le captage et stockage de carbone, ainsi que dans les secteurs de l'hydrogène et de la géothermie. We're at the heart of the energy transition in so many different areas. And in an uncertain world, we have another commodity that partners are choosing. It's the rarest of commodities, unfortunately, these days, which is trust. Canada is a stable, reliable partner in a world that is anything but. And as our strategic value as a reliable low-carbon energy provider is unlocking markets for Canadian products and investments across the board. That's the core point. There's a huge commercial opportunity, but it unlocks much more, and that's what we're leveraging to make us more independent as a country, more resilient, and more prosperous. Our sovereignty, our sustainability, and our prosperity depend on our ability to supply and control our energy, particularly electricity. As the economy expands and grows, as AI accelerates, electricity demand in Canada is expected to double over the course of the next 25 years. So we will double our electricity generation because electrification underpins everything. Affordability, it always starts with affordability, our environment, and our economy. We start, and I'm in British Columbia, we start from a position of strength. Led by BC, we have amongst the lowest electricity costs in the world. We have amongst the most sustainable grids. We must extend that advantage. Pour doubler la capacité de notre réseau électrique, il faudra des investissements importants dans la connexion des réseaux provinciaux et une répartition des coûts sur quelques années, afin que les consommateurs aujourd'hui n'aient pas à supporter à eux sans le coût d'investissement dans les Canadiens et la planète bénéficieront pendant des décennies. We have to do this in a way that affordability, that we don't put all the burden on ratepayers today for benefits that will be felt by generations going forward. Et cela nécessite une réforme du système des permis, de nouveaux partenariats avec les peuples autochtones et la volonté de mettre à profit l'ensemble des sources d'énergie disponibles. So doubling our grid will actually deliver, rather than just promise, on our climate change objectives. Because by far the biggest emission reduction prize, is reducing emissions affordably through electrification, not pursuing absolute purity in generation. Aggressive electrification can reduce total emissions by 5 times the emission reductions across Canada in the electricity sector. To be clear, there is also no credible plan to net zero without a relentless focus on affordability at a time when Canadians are suffering. That's why we intend to adjust the clean electricity regulations, keeping energy reliable and affordable in the short term as we shift to cleaner energy across Canada over time. That's why, under Gregor's leadership, we will expand support for energy-saving retrofits for up to 1 million households through financing, through grants, complementary measures. That's why Build Canada Homes is focused on sustainability and affordability in the transition. We'll make it easier for Canadians across the country. I know these issues are not top of mind in BC, but it's important. More than 1 million Canadians. We need, almost 2 million Canadians to transition from expensive propane, oil, electric baseboard heating to more affordable electric heat pumps. And with the right investments, 7 in 10 Canadians will pay less for their energy by 2050. That's more than $15 billion back into their pockets. Go back to my theme. In a rapidly changing world, Canada must become the source of affordable, clean, and reliable power. Because when we master energy, we master our destiny. So, let me just make a few points about what this means for BC. And the first, this is the good news part, this means large federal incentives to build more transition, including in province, aggressive investment tax credits, supportive financing, coordinated environmental assessments, and the financing of Indigenous equity participation. And I said transmission, I mean transition and generation, of course. Second, it means providing interconnections to promote affordability and resilience. And a prime example is the Northwest Critical Conservation Corridor, which we referred to the Major Projects Office just past November. That corridor, as you may know, includes links to the Yukon's isolated grid, interconnections within province to new hydro and renewables, while creating a conservation area the size of Greece and unlocking billions, tens of billions in critical minerals investments in the Golden Triangle. It also could include a potential Alberta-BC intertie, which will deliver an additional $2 billion in net economic benefits generated through savings in efficiency, cheaper fuel, and new investment. The third thing is the accelerated development of critical minerals. Now, yesterday morning, weather wasn't quite as nice, I have to say. I was in Quebec, Nouveau-Mont Graphite, the world's largest graphite mine, or the largest graphite mine in the G7, including a processing facility, an 8-fold increase in Canada's graphite production, this mine. So you go from that example to the Red Chris mine expansion here. We have the resources the world needs. To develop them, what the government has been doing over the last year, we've signed 56 critical minerals agreements with more than 10 countries, all close allies, unlocking over $18 billion in investment. So if I go back to Nouveau-Mont Graphite, we underwrote about a third of the production at a floor price. We've laid off most of that to E&I in Italy, a Luxembourg company, and Panasonic. That's the way to get things moving fast. Fourth thing that it means here and, of course, across the country is developing our skilled workforce. Doubling the grid will create 30,000 new high-paying jobs over the next 3 years alone, another 100,000 by 2050. So we've set up in recent weeks something called Team Canada Strong, a $6 billion nationwide effort that works through the unions, it works through the technical colleges to do a variety of things, including the technical ability to run a teleprompter in real time. It happens. I'm not going to go into I'm not going to say who, you know what, there's a teleprompter joke I could tell about a conspiracy theory, but I think it's probably that. Are those things on back? Yeah, they are, so we'll leave it off. We're 100,000 Red Seal. The point is to have 100,000 Red Seal tradespeople over the course of the next 5 years. 5 years. And the fifth thing this means, and it's sort of where I started, it means working with partners. Now, I think I should say a few words about our recent agreement with Alberta. Building on November's MOU, last week we signed what's called an implementation agreement. It covers regulation, markets, methane, renewables, and carbon capture. It commits Alberta to methane reductions of 75% by 2035. Crucially, it creates a carbon market that actually works, raising the effective carbon price 6.5 times by 2040, with binding annual benchmarks, in other words, a floor, and reinforced by 75 million tons of carbon contracts for differences. In other words, Ottawa and Edmonton will have significant skin in the game for this market to work. In the weeks ahead, we will engage with British Columbia, in fact, the hours ahead, I'm going to see the Premier in a moment, with British Columbia and all the provinces and territories on changes to the federal carbon pricing benchmark to align those with these new commitments. Now, as you... Yeah. And we'll do it fast so we have one consistent and predictable approach. Now, as you may have heard, we're also advancing discussions on a potential pipeline to transport at least 1 million barrels a day of low-emission Alberta crude to Asian markets. The pipeline will only advance. Thank you. There we go. I'd like to welcome the Pathways to this. The pipeline will only be advanced with the following prerequisites being met. The first is the building of Pathways, renamed the Oil Sands Alliance. This is the world's largest carbon capture, utilization, and storage project. It will make Alberta oil amongst the lowest intensity, carbon intensity per barrel produced, in other words, on a Scope 1, Scope 2 basis. Secondly, it requires that British Columbians should share substantial economic and financial benefits from projects that include or impact them. And thirdly, it requires fully respecting Canada's duty to consult under Section 35 of the Constitution. Non-negotiable. And that includes whether to designate a project being in the national interest. That includes the conditions placed on the project. And it includes ensuring Indigenous economic benefits, partnerships, and opportunities for co-ownership. Yeah. And one of the benefits, I'm going to go off script here, but one of the benefits of actually sitting down and talking about these things, as opposed to litigating about these things across federal government and provinces, is that it develops a shared understanding, a recognition of what needs to be done, an understanding of why this is the right thing to do, a commitment that goes beyond what's written on the page. And that's where we're moving between the two governments. You know the federal government's commitment to these issues. It's fundamental. It's fundamental to this government. But we're moving to a position where we can realize on those commitments. Alors, l'énergie est un levier essentiel pour diversifier nos marchés d'exportation et donc d'accroître notre prospérité, notre résilience et notre indépendance. À cette fin, nous avons signé plus de 20 accords économiques et de sécurité sur les 51 ans en moins d'un an. Cette année, nous faisons avancer d'importants accords commerciaux avec l'Inde, l'ASEAN, le Mercosur, la Thaïlande et les Philippines. Et nos partenaires commerciaux actuels, la Corée et le Japon, souhaitaient d'approvisionner davantage en énergie tout en renforçant le lien stratégique en matière de commerce et d'investissement. To translate quickly, 20 economic and security partnerships signed in the last year on 5 continents, pursuing major accords with India, ASEAN, Thailand, Philippines, Mercosur by the end of this year, things that normally take 10 years to negotiate. Our traditional partners, for example, Korea, with whom we do have a free trade agreement, deepening that across a range of domains, very much including energy security. Inbound calls now to develop this and to broaden it out for deeper partnership. Our overall objective is to double our non-US exports this decade. That's over $300 billion in new orders for Canadian resources, for goods and expertise. And that brings me back to British Columbia. We need trade corridors to match that ambition. Obviously, nowhere is that more important than right here. The Port of Vancouver alone handles more cargo than the next 5 largest Canadian ports combined. You know this. $1 billion in trade every single day with 170 countries. And in order to double our non-US exports, we need to grow the capacity of this port. And that means the rail, the road, the airport infrastructure, the lower mainland, all the lower mainland that feeds it. That requires ambition, investment, partnership, and a sense of timing. These are among the issues that I look forward to discussing with Premier Eby later this morning, because we need to move in a coordinated fashion. We need to move together. We need to move in a way that respects our environmental responsibilities, builds our partnership with First Nations, but builds the country's independence, sovereignty, resilience, and prosperity at the same time. Now, let me finish. I'll just finish with a couple of other words, and then I'll have time for one question. Canada, we've been focused on what we can control in this period. So while we're building that leverage on energy advantage, we're also looking to build a more competitive economy, as we discussed. We've cut taxes on incomes and capital gains for tens of millions of Canadians. We've introduced a productivity superdeduction that makes Canada the most tax competitive country in the G7, more than 4 percentage points lower than the United States, less than half the rate of the G7 average. We're expanding investment tax credits for clean energy, clean manufacturing, and critical minerals. Major global investors now rank Canada as the most attractive country in the world for infrastructure investment. Think about that. Foreign investment in Canada has reached its highest level in 2 decades, and it's running at twice the rate, adjusted for the size of our economy, twice the rate of our nearest G7 competitor. Non-US exports are up sharply. They're tracking for that doubling over the next decade. We're getting big things done. 22 nation-building projects and strategies referred to that major projects office. One-third of those 22 are right here in British Columbia. You know about the progress that's been made by LNG 2, Siliciums, the other projects in LNG. We started construction on Contrecoeur, on Darlington, Nouveau Monde Graphite yesterday in Quebec, Mackenzie Valley Highway, which starts this summer. Some of these projects have been talked about for my entire lifetime, and they've moved within 6 to 12 months from discussion to action. And we're just getting started. We are building BC strong so we can build Canada strong for all. I'm looking forward to that conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister, for your remarks. Perhaps where I will start is talking about British Columbia, because you started your remarks there and ended them there. British Columbia has what the world needs, whether we're talking about critical minerals, LNG, clean power, an incredible tech sector, world-class talent. I would like to hear more, though, about your vision for British Columbia when it comes to your economic and nation-building strategy. You know, there's been a lot of discussion and some politics across the country about the role that British Columbia plays. Where do you see our role?
Well, I mean, first off, I would say all of the above, and in all seriousness, because the energy opportunity is enormous. I went through it, so I won't belabor that. You rightly picked up, both in your introductory comments and just in your question now about the tech sector. I'll broaden that out to the quality of human capital that's here, and the innovation that thrives from that. 12,000 companies in the tech sector right now in BC, at least on my numbers. World-class research universities, incredibly attractive place to be. So what do we do that benefits British Columbia? Obviously, we're the federal government, so it's cross Canada. I want to highlight a couple of things. One is we put in place 6 months ago $1.7 billion to attract the top research talent to our universities. And if you think about it, it's attracting whole teams of leading researchers to come in. UBC, Simon Fraser, others will be our direct beneficiaries. The best universities will go out and get it. The second thing that we've done, and I referenced it, which is around the overall tax structure, the super deduction for productivity. To be clear, that applies not just to traditional manufacturing and beyond, although that's super important. It applies to data. It applies to intelligence infrastructure. It applies to IP, so an option to choose when you want to write off the 100% there. And then we stack on top it a series of other investment tax credits. It's really around all forms of investment. So to some degree, the vision for BC, yes, there's the obvious areas, energy, critical minerals, tech, but it's also where BC wants to take it. And if I could pull it up one more level, it's time to build. Very basic thing that we've been saying. What we're trying to accomplish, and I think we're really getting momentum now across the country, is we don't want to hear what people are against. We want to hear what they're for. And if you're for something, we will get behind you. And so, and let's give full credit to BC. I think there's a lot more to come. But as I referenced, more than a third of those 22 projects and strategies that are being fast-tracked through the nation-building approach are from British Columbia. So that gives a sense of the opportunity set, but also it's starting to move. So it is a time, one last thing, and I'll head back, is, I mean, a number of us have been through difficult circumstances, either in a specific company or an institution. I've had the experience of living through a series of crises. And it's a truism, but it's right, is fortune favors the bold in the crisis. You really have to look for positive things. If you're pulling back and trying to minimize risk all the time, it will overwhelm you. And we have a series of big shocks in the world, but we are very much in control of our destiny, and you feel it as the country is getting momentum, and I feel it, and I have the privilege of, or the responsibility of direct interaction with a series of countries. Countries want to deal with Canada right now. They want to build those strategic partnerships, and of course, BC is, in many respects, our most international province and the gateway to much of that.
So that's great to hear that British Columbia has a significant role, and acknowledging that with the urgency that I think Tamara talked about, the time to build is now. But many business leaders in this room who are full support of that would say that the greatest challenge for Canada is uncertainty. And so very recently, earlier this month, your government put out a discussion paper proposing reforms to ensure that federal reviews and decision-making timelines will take no longer than 1 year, and a singular hub to manage Crown consultation. The consultations are becoming steeper and more onerous, in part due to DRIPA and in part due to some legal rulings. So what gives you confidence that you can speed up the approval timelines that are needed to meet this moment?
So there's a series of things. There's a lot behind that legislation. And just for the overall context, we put in place a little less than a year ago. I look at Minister Dominic LeBlanc, who led this major projects legislation, nation building projects. If we designate a nation building project, it goes through a separate process that can speed up for those projects a series of federal responsibilities. And then what we're doing with the provinces, and BC led this, is we're signing agreements so that we don't duplicate what the provinces are doing in terms of various assessments. So that's first. That works for these nation building projects, and it's unlocking big things that have been literally stalled for, in some cases, decades, incredibly. So that's the thing. But that doesn't apply to most of the things that everybody will work on. And so what this legislation is looking at is applying a similar approach for federal activities across the board. And if I could simplify it, I would say, and there's a lot behind what I'm about to say, which is that most federal approvals are siloed, and they happen sequentially, not simultaneously. Often with, if you drew a Venn diagram with very similar information that's required, but not exactly the same information, which puts a huge, huge burden. A lot of those processes go through multiple regulators or points of contact at the federal level, and in many cases are duplicative of what's happening at the provincial level. So we're putting in place the legislation, the architecture to one-stop shop, clear legislated commitment to have all the decisions within 1 year, and in other cases, we're consolidating federal regulatory decision-making to make that happen, or relying on the provinces because they're doing the same thing, in some cases better than we would do.
You mentioned the MOU, and you have a meeting after this meeting to go. I'm sure that will be on the agenda when you talk to Premier Eby. Many business leaders in British Columbia are very supportive of the MOU, but there are some challenges. There's not an agreed-upon route. There is some opposition from some First Nations leaders. When you look at that situation, but also combined with what we were just speaking about, major projects and the need to accelerate timelines, how do you navigate the complexities that exist in British Columbia?
Well, the first is you commit to, you show up. So you show up with Coastal First Nations, as I did a few months ago, and colleagues have been doing, including very much our BC ministers in caucus. And Wade Grant, I see, is over here. Yeah, there he is as well. So we're all represented here. So you show up, you listen, you learn, you iterate. That's number one. You sit down, you talk regularly with the premier here, and you sit down and you work through. Secondly, you adjust to what people want. Again, go back to what people want. But you do as well make clear that, look, we're the federal government. It's a big country. There's lots of things going on. Life's about time management. I'm touched that you all allocated your time to come and listen to me this morning. I hope you're not regretting it yet. But if things get stalled here, we're going to be spending more time elsewhere in the country because we need to move forward. We need to invest at scale in the country. We need to, for all the reasons I mentioned, affordability, sustainability, independence, and prosperity. And so all of that is involved. I would say that without overstating it, and there's a lot more that needs to be done, but these discussions are much more constructive than they are portrayed, and I think part of the reason why that is the case is our people are looking for us to find solutions. Like they are looking for if it's the one sense I get going across the country is people want their leaders to be sitting down, doing positive things, moving forward, and so that you have that sense of responsibility.
I was listening to your comments, and what I heard you say around the priority of ranking, affordability becomes a top concern. I hearken back to almost 15 years ago to this day. You were on our stage as the Bank of Canada governor. We might have a photograph.
There isn't a transcript, is there?
But you focused your remarks and your presentation. There we are.
So young.
We all probably
That's when I
looked a
only
little
had
young.
to make one decision. 8 times a year. Yeah.
You focused your remarks on affordability and housing, and that is an acute situation in Vancouver, and recognizing that affordability has become a crisis. Fuel prices, grocery prices, in part due to the war with Iran. But when we think about Vancouver, it does come back to housing, which your government has taken some action on. But what would you say to this group in the room about the measurable outcomes that your government can commit to over the next 3 years that will improve affordability?
Okay, so there's multiple levels. Now I'm just going to situate that photo, by the way. And this is correlation and causation. There was a riot after that speech. Wasn't there? Because was that not?
2011, June 2011.
I know, it was, yeah, that was because I went to the game. It was really tough. It was really tough to get back to my hotel.
We're all
I don't
cheering
think
on
what I said was
Montreal
so
now.
bad, but I don't bring it.
I think we're all cheering on
Look,
Montreal
it's
now.
important that we acknowledge our past if we're going to learn from it, and so maybe it was something I said. On affordability and housing, so we've got to get into it on multiple levels, and obviously it's not exclusively the federal government's responsibility, but we can play a significant role. I'm literally in my line of sight is Minister Robertson, Gregor Robertson. We could not have a better person at this time to help solve these issues with respect to what we call deep affordability. So we're talking transition out of homelessness. We're talking 30 to 40, well, almost 50% really of the population. I mean, we have not, part of the reason why housing's not affordable is we haven't built affordable housing. We haven't built housing at scale for, for those social strata, and we need to change that. What we're doing, and look, Gregor's Build Canada Homes has only been in operation 6 months. Is it 6 months now? So happy 6-month anniversary. We've already got on the order of 11,000 homes that will of that quality, which are deeply affordable, built with Canadian materials, 25% cheaper, 25% lower emission, that are either breaking ground or about to break ground, and you can see the ramp up. So there's that level of action on affordability. That's number one. The second thing is mass affordability, if I can put it that way, which is around, we have a couple of housing markets. You may know of one here. Toronto would be another that have structural challenges, overhangs, if you will, in the condo market, very high out of reach affordability for most people, your point. We have put on the table, Ontario has picked it up, we have put on the table infrastructure financing, a series of other measures. So the situation in Ontario now, we struck the deal 2 months ago, 3 months ago, is no GST, no HST on new housing. Development charges cut in half for the next 3 years on new build, which is major. We're talking $200,000 in many markets in Ontario, reduction in fees and taxes, which can flow directly through to the home buyer. So that's material improvement in affordability, and what we're looking to do is a structural change. We're in early stages of discussion with the BC government around something similar. And then beyond, if I can stretch it beyond, I mean, obviously we did cut GST for first-time home buyers, we've cut income tax, we've cut a series of other things, but we need supply, just to bring it back. We need the right kind of supply, deep affordability. We need to fix some of these structural issues in the core markets, and we need to grow incomes. That's ultimately we need to grow our way back in here as well.
I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about our trade corridors. You mentioned that British Columbia is the most international province. We obviously have Canada's largest port, and you talked about investment to expand our port capacity. Can you speak more about the kind of investments that your government will do to increase our diversification strategy and to ensure that we are doing what we need to do to get these goods to market?
Well, I think the first thing to recognize is that we as a country, and part of it is through here, have fallen way behind in terms of the productivity of our ports or our trade corridors as a whole. So the time it takes from a widget, a good showing up just off the coast here to landing to the client, if you will, in central Canada or the United States is measured in weeks, not days. That's partly port capacity, it's partly the way it works, it's the rail interconnections, there's a variety of factors that are there, and we're looking to tackle all of those in a comprehensive way. The second thing is, just to state the obvious, we're going to run out of capacity at Port of Vancouver over the course of the next, well, less than a decade, in effect. We would like to run out of capacity sooner than that, because we would like to be growing our exports faster than that, which means we need to act now. Acting now is on multiple levels. It's partnerships with First Nations. It's agreement with the province of British Columbia, something we're beginning discussions around. It's the right environmental protections. It's significant investment to ensure that those are delivered. We're prepared to do that. But in and of itself, it's potentially real estate development that can be part of an overall solution, better for the city, better for port infrastructure, redeployment of capital for that. And we need to do all of that, and it's also thinking about, sorry, last point, more integrated transport routes in the Lower Mainland. That's a euphemism, but if you probably can figure out what I'm saying. But the last thing is we need to do that in an integrated way with the rail system as well. So that, the industrial structure. So we're taking it all on, because the worst thing to do is to do this piecemeal and not get the overall benefits, not have a better waterfront here, not have greater productivity, not have the South Resident killer whales protected, not have First Nation partnership. We can do all that if we do it all together with a sense of urgency that the moment demands, because if we don't do this, to be clear, it is going to be very hard for us to become materially more independent, more resilient as a country. So it is a big, big priority.
Congratulations to you and your government for your leadership on the Defence, Security and Resilience Bank. This is a very important initiative that Canada has taken a significant leadership step in. And now that Canada has been awarded the bank, I understand there's a lot more governance and structural decisions that need to be made. But there are a number of cities who have put their hands up, including Vancouver. The Greater Vancouver Board of Trade is part of the steering committee, as is many of the business leaders in here, part of the committee, as we're working to try and showcase the strengths. And you talk about British Columbia being the most international province. We believe firmly that we are strategically located in Canada to host this bank, understanding that there will be a process that will be undertaken to do this. I mean, what role do you see British Columbia playing in this arena?
I thought. I thought there was going to be a PowerPoint that was going to come out at some point, but that was very, very good, Bridget. And let me say that the mayor has been, Mayor Sims, a very effective advocate for this. On a number of occasions, has raised the many strengths of Vancouver in this regard. Let me just a tiny bit of context here. Is this, we think, obviously, this is a very important initiative for all NATO countries. We're going to be ramping up our spending. One of the things that, with all due respect to my former friends in the financial services sector, don't do that well is financing. They'll finance a very large multinational defense or security conglomerate, but not good at all in terms of the small, medium-sized businesses and getting the broader benefits of that. We need an institution that's going to be able to do that quickly. This is what the Security Bank, Defense and Security Bank, one of its principal roles will do as we all ramp up. It's very strategic for Canada because it will deepen our ties with key allies and others. Not everybody in NATO is going to come in, to be clear, so it's a smaller set. What needs to happen, just for context, I'm not avoiding your question, but I think it's important that we all have the context, is the final number of countries that are part of this bank. A number of countries have decisions to make over the course of the next 6-12 months. So we'll get the overall grouping that's willing to put the capital in, and then we will move to the decisions of where to have it. And I think it's, and I will say as well that many of the relationships and ties that British Columbia has beyond NATO in Asia are going to be very important to this. And I'm going to cheat, and I know we've gone over, but I'm just going to make one, if I can make one broader strategic point of what we're doing as a country. So I talked a lot about energy, and energy is a lever to open up, I mean, a good in and of itself, but also to open up other opportunities. What's happening in the world right now is that a series of like-minded countries are looking at deepening their relationships across various strategic sectors: defense, cyber, artificial intelligence, it won't surprise you, space, critical minerals, more conventional energy, obviously food security, those areas. And so a lot of the trade and investment discussions are interlinked to that. Whenever you bring a financial overlay to that, that further deepens it. And some of our most, we won't sign up to one, there's no middle power alliance, which is about to happen, just to be absolutely clear. But there'll be a series of agreements, often overlapping, that are being struck. And Asian partners such as Korea, Japan, Australia, more broadly ASEAN countries, they often fit very well into that framework, which is why we're spending so much time developing it. And this room and the people you represent, the people you know, are some of our biggest assets in doing that. So again, with the spirit that we talked about at the start of building and reaching out, that's how we're really supercharge this.
I know we are way over time, but I did want to end on one point and to give you an opportunity to give a message to these people who came to see you today. You used forward guidance as Governor of the Bank of Canada, and there's a YouTube channel now, or a YouTube... A video. forward guidance. So could you give the leaders in the room here who are very clearly here to help you meet the moment, what would be some forward guidance for the business leaders here in Vancouver?
I think, well, I gave, if I can pick up on the last bit of my previous answer, which I inserted, those elements are going to come into place over the course of the next 18, 24 months. Like, this is a very decisive period for Canada, also for the world. This is a very positive agenda. It's not a defensive agenda. It's about all of us becoming stronger, more. These are countries, and we're very much at the front of this, that believe in openness. If I could give forward guidance, which is more asking people of what to do, which is not really what it's about. Forward guidance is really about explaining what's likely to happen. But what's likely to happen are those agreements or forms of them, and the way you can take advantage of them and help build Canada is to get out there, connect in your domains internationally, vice versa, investment coming in here. I'll end with this, and I hope you feel it, which is the world really does want to do more with Canada. They want to invest more here. They want more trade. They want more partnership. They want to come watch the World Cup here in Vancouver. I made a pact, by the way, with the King of Spain yesterday that in the unlikely event that Canada is knocked out of the World Cup, not going to happen, I will consider backing Spain. And he's agreed wholeheartedly. He went to school in Canada, so he's going to back Canada if Spain gets knocked out. But no, it's really to get out there and lead. This is the time. You'll find you'll be exceptionally well received, and this is the opportunity. So that's the guidance.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. You have given us a great deal to consider, and you have inspired us to action. To bring this morning's event to a close, I would like to invite Jill Schnarr, the Chief Communications and Brand Officer from TELUS, for some closing remarks.
Bonjour tout le monde. Prime Minister Carney, thank you so much for being here today and for your inspiring and deeply optimistic remarks about Canada's future. At a time of profound global uncertainty and economic instability, your leadership has brought a renewed sense of confidence to Canadians. Your focus on strengthening Canada's economy, advancing clean growth, and ensuring our country competes from a position of strength resonates deeply with all of us business leaders here today. Importantly, you have challenged Canadian businesses not simply to participate in the future economy, but to build it, to lead it. At TELUS, we proudly embrace that responsibility. As a global technology company with 130,000 team members operating across 45 countries, TELUS is proud to be headquartered right here in Vancouver. Just last week, we announced 3 new AI data centers in partnership with the federal government, which will be among the world's most sustainable AI infrastructure. And just yesterday, we announced that TELUS will invest $66 billion across Canada over the next 5 years to expand our network infrastructure, strengthen connectivity, advance AI, and position Canada as a global innovation leader. Because we not only need pipelines and trade corridors, we need critical digital infrastructure that powers our economy. Prime Minister, thank you for your leadership, your partnership, and importantly, for challenging Canadian businesses to think bigger and act more boldly in service of our country's future. At this pivotal moment in history, Canada has an extraordinary opportunity not simply to adapt to global change, but to lead it. All of us here today are proud to stand alongside your government as we continue building a stronger, more sustainable, and more competitive Canada for generations to come. Let's build Canada strong for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. And thank you again to all of our sponsors for making today's event possible. Prime Minister Carney, thank you so much for coming to Vancouver and sharing your vision and your thoughts about where British Columbia places in the economic agenda that you've put forward. As I started with the morning remarks, this room, BC businesses are here to support and to lead, and we are ready to build. Thank you. Thanks for coming today.